everybody! Today I'm going to scrapbook this cool photo of this tree with a collection of Heidi Swapp papers from September Skies. And it's an older collection. I think it's at least a year old. The collection that I have, or most of it, is actually from the paper pad, so I really don't have names for a lot of these papers. I don't actually have names for any of the September Skies papers. What I am going to do, though, however, is I'm going to mount my photo of the tree on a green piece of paper to help set it off from the rest of these pieces. And that piece is from Bella Boulevard. It's called Simply Spring. Gingham is the name of the paper. And I'm going to do something I layer all the time, but I haven't done this in quite a while, and it was kind of fun to do it. I scrapbooked I think 8 layouts during National Scrapbook Day weekend. Most of them I actually did on National Scrapbook Day. I think I did 6 or 7 of the 8 on the actual day. But I decided to change things up a little bit, and I'm layering in more tight layers than I have been lately. A lot of times I'll use larger blocks of paper. And I loved that paper that I just cut a piece out. It looks like birch trees, and I had first thought that I was going to really highlight that birch tree paper, but I was getting tired of the big blocks of paper and wanted to do something different. So that's why I did that. I'm going back here again to Bella Boulevard. This is a different paper, but the colors are very similar to the gingham. And that scallop, with the scallop there, is from Bella Boulevard Christmas Wishes, and the paper is called Quadrants. There's actually quadrants on the back. This chevron is again from the September Skies pad. And not only, by the way, am I layering in tighter layers, but I'm actually doing it using my scissors versus my paper cutter. And for somebody who is a confessed reformed perfectionist, but also just I like straight lines, period. That's hard. What I was just showing you there is in that September Skies chevron, there's a lighter tealy aqua color that you're not seeing in any of my layers so far. So I've gone to my paper stash of single individual sheets, and they tend to be sheets that I use for backgrounds more than anything in this stash. And I've grabbed some papers. And this is actually the paper I'm going to settle on. It's an L Studio paper from the Joyful collection, which was last year's Christmas collection, and the name of the paper is Warm and Cozy. So Joyful, Warm and Cozy. I'm just playing here with how my layers are going to be arranged, and I'm cutting things right now, but I'm going to change how those layers happen in just a little bit. Now I'm trying to get more of that chevron peeking through so you can see those colors, but what ends up happening is I am going to change that. So I've just taken a little bit of the birch pattern down, a little bit more of that chevron down. And what I decide to do is I actually cut the chevron not so it sticks out, but that it peeks out from underneath, because my layers were getting a little bit too even. They were all, they were all making a rectangle basically, and I wasn't loving how that looks. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to layer them, but I'm going to offset the layers from each other so that it's not all just one rectangle stacked on top of the other exactly, with the space exactly between them. And I like this much, much more now that I have this done. So I'm watching scrapbooking videos on my iPad right in front of me, so that's why you're seeing me play there a little bit, or seeing me changing something. I don't remember who I was watching, but I watched a lot of scrapbook videos on that day. What I did there is I just cut that chevron paper down a little bit, because with the way I had cut it when I trimmed it, you really couldn't see much of that underneath chevron. And I did want to see at least a portion of it so you could get some of the colors. So the colors, all of the colors that are in the papers above it are now peeking out either on the top or the bottom, with either the top or the bottom chevrons. So cutting more away there as well. Ruffled them up a little bit. I did something else as I left these edges a little bit less glued down than I normally did, just because they are all layered. And here's where, of course, I do the dangerous thing that I like to do, which is I decided I wanted to ink all those layers. So I grab my Dewdrop Memento ink in gray flannel and I start inking, even though the layers are all glued down. So, you know, if you like to live dangerously, that's what you should do. Otherwise, do it before you glue them all down. But that's a frequent thing for me. If you watch my videos, you see that often. I love this gray ink. It's dark enough without being too dark, which sounds silly, but it's really true. It's not as dark as a black, so it adds an edge to things, but it's a softer edge because it's not black. So I need to pry up those layers a little bit here and there just to get them inked down. And it's a lot of them because there's lots of little edges here. I am really trying to use up some of my older collections, especially where I have a paper pad. I'm getting too much paper, and even if I'd used quite a few of my older collections up, I'd still have way too much paper. But collections I've loved, like this when I first got it, I absolutely love this collection. Got some of the papers, then bought the paper pad or bought the paper pads, and then some of the individual papers. So I'm really trying to use it before I don't like them anymore, which is what happened. I had a bunch of basic gray and I bought a ton of it when it was in its heyday in the mid 2000s and late 2000s, and then my scrapbooking style changed, and I think to some extent, well, there is still some of that shabby chic definitely going on in the industry, but I changed. And my layout style became a lot cleaner. The papers that I liked became a lot cleaner. So I had a lot of basic gray that not that long ago I gave away to my sister-in-law for her classroom because she's a 4th grade teacher, which is really sad. So anyway, I'm really trying to use up some of these collections. I grabbed that wood veneer word there, again, in an effort to use up some old product. This is from Heidi Swap's September Skies. And then I also grabbed the ephemera pack as well too. I'm looking at the cut-aparts and thinking about maybe putting some of these cut-aparts on the layout, which they don't end up on the layout, but I'm going to play with them a little bit. And that's okay because I use these cut-aparts for journaling or as embellishments quite a bit. So I'm going to just look at this, you know, do I want to change up this a little bit? And there's too much going on between the word and the chevrons in that cut-apart, so I go back to the floral cut-apart there. That is from a cut-apart sheet from the collection. And I decide instead of revealing the whole circle, I'm going to offset that a little bit so that you don't see the whole thing, that you see part of it. And I like that it balances the weight a little bit more, because otherwise I felt like too much of the journaling card was actually sticking out. I'm looking, I discovered that when I cut that off, I had a part of another card on that edge, so I went and I quick trimmed that on my paper trimmer. Plus I wanted to trim down that far right edge a little bit, so again it didn't stick out quite as far, so that it looked like it was resting a little bit on that word instead of what it looks like, not what it looked like, which is it was really hanging off the edge there. So I'm using my ATG to put the glue on the back of that word, and now I'm just taking it out of the open parts of the letters there. You'll notice that I'm clustering here and I'm working on top of my background paper, but I actually have not glued most of those. The layers are glued to each other, but they're not glued down to the page. The reason that is I'm not quite sure if I'm going to add any other like layers or borders or anything to this layout, so that's why I'm doing that. I didn't talk about this photograph, but what it is it's a photograph of an actual tree that we saw on a hike in a place called Madera Canyon in Arizona, in southern Arizona. And it's in a parking lot, and we turned back and looked around, and it looks like an old man. At least to me, it looked like an old man. So I took the photograph. This is from 2014, just to show you that I really don't scrap in order. And I think it's the oldest, it was the oldest photo in my stack of photos I had to scrapbook. So it was very good to get this finally scrapped. And because it was naturey and those colors felt naturey to me in the September skies, I decided to use them to scrapbook this. I did pull the actual ephemera pack there as I was talking, and I pulled some acetate leaves and also that arrow to include on the layers within this cluster here. And now I'm actually starting to glue things down. The reason I'm doing, one of the other reasons is I finally decided where I wanted, that I was going to put that arrow down to the left side, which then I knew that I could glue things down, because the next things to go down would be the arrow and those acrylics, and the whole cluster of paper there is going to need to be glued, or it's not going to sit down well. Okay. Just about done there. Getting that glued down. And I'm just showing the everyday word there. Now, I don't hike in Madera Canyon every day. I don't live in Arizona. I was visiting somebody. But it's just that that guy is sitting there every day, and a tree is such an everyday sight. So that's why I decided to use that wood veneer there. Now I'm thinking as I'm doing this, ooh, I don't have a title on this page, so I'm going to need to get that accomplished yet, and you will see that. But I'm just quick doing a little bit of journaling about this old man in the tree here. I don't need much of it, but I wanted to document where we saw this particular tree. And again, I'm looking and thinking, what do I need here? What do I need here? And I need a title. Well, I don't need a title. I don't have to have a title, but I do want to put one on it. And I want the title to be Old Man. So I go back and I find these foam letters from American Crafts. They're thickers and they're called Wonder. There is no color on this font, but I do love this. And I think, if I remember correctly, I think Maggie Holmes just brought out some letters in this Wonder font in gold, if I remember correctly. If it's not the Wonder font, it's very, very close. I'll have to look that up when I'm done narrating the video, just because now, of course, I'm curious about, really, is that true or not. I'm starting to get towards the end of these letters, and I didn't have everything I needed. So I cut a letter down there to make the L. And what I'm not realizing until in just a minute, that I'm actually doing this backwards. The man should be right there. I cut apart another letter. I think it was a Q, if I remember correctly, to make the O for Old Man. And I do that all the time, where I cut my letters apart. I'll take them. I want to get the mileage out of them, and it's fine. You have to look at them pretty closely to understand that that's what I did, unless you're a scrapbooker. You'd know that. But so anyway, and it's a great way to get more mileage out of your thickers. So I am creating letters all the time when I don't have them. You'll notice also I was very brave on this one, and I didn't put my title down on wax paper first, because I actually had I had the spot where I was going to start the title, and I could spell it backwards. I'm just about done here. You'll see a still shot and a couple of detail shots at the end. Hope you are all well, and I'll be back with another video soon. Bye!